What's up, fam? So today you have me and just me. So it's just us together. And so I'm gonna do my best to just hang out, answer some questions, and yeah, that's basically it. Kind of take it easy today. Of course, I don't really have any preset topics in mind. Just I wrote down a few notes about things I've been thinking about, things I've been reviewing, and that's basically it. So I'm gonna be no. Can't do that right now. Sorry, mom. Uh, so I will be looking at the comments a lot to see what you guys have to say. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them up there. I'll try to read all of them. And if you definitely have one that you want answered, super chat just makes it easy to show because it's highlighted and it helps us out here. And yeah, so if you have a pressing thing that you definitely want me to answer, throw in a super chat and we'll make sure to answer it. So anyway, what's going on? How's it going? I see some of you guys in here. Of course, Tim Perry, our editor. We have Marv. He says aloha. Okay, what's up, man? Sorry I missed you when I was in Hawaii. Let's see. Daryl. How you doing, Daryl? Van Gool. Michael Squires, who's an after show part of the after show crew. That's why he has that little logo here. And we got Uncle Fred in the house. What's going on? Happy Tuesday. John Hour says morning, missed a few sessions. It's all good. It's all good. And Michael says go RSL 12S. So I assume that means that you finally have them set up. I know you purchased some a while ago, and it's good to hear. I want to hear in the after show what you actually think about them. And yeah, if they're rocking or not. I have one, so I already know. Thing is huge and handles business. So no question about that. Let's see what do I have here in my notes. Yeah, I just have a few questions. What any questions? Any new news that you guys are keeping up with in the audio video space? You'd think that I would know, but I try not to watch too many other channels, honestly, because I'm just so engulfed in the things that I'm focused on and the things I'm reviewing that yeah, I don't really have time to look at what other people are talking about. I try to just kind of skim here and there, maybe read an email, newsletter, stuff like that. And but that's basically it. I'm not watching very many other videos except from my friends here on Daily HiFi. So yeah. Daryl says, just wondering what the next big thing could be. What are you referring to? There's a lot of things to talk about. What's the next big thing in what specifically? In speakers, in amplifiers, in DSP, in video, projectors, TVs, like what? What specifically? Let me know. John asks, "Hey Joe, suggestions for an LCR for acoustically transparent screen, about 115 to 120 inch." I mean, it depends if you're gonna go with an in wall, an on wall. I think basically the same things apply when it comes to that stuff. You just want a good on axis response and a good directivity that matches the on axis response. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. You just want it to be a smooth trend downward. And that's basically it. Usually, what I found is a lot of times you can get very good directivity with an in-wall speaker because the actual wall is the baffle itself. So you don't have to worry about diffraction from the edges, things like that. So yeah, I don't know. You need to give me a little bit more info for me to give you a good answer on that. Got my energy drink here. All right. So Daryl says, yes, everything is just getting more, not different. More channels, more pixels, more faster, more expensive. Okay. And you know what? That kind of leads into one of the topics I had, which is, have you guys been seeing these high-powered Class D amps, like Class D mono blocks from Fosse? They sent me 6 of them, the V3 monos, And I've been hearing, when Aaron reviewed one, it overheated, and during his testing. And then I saw, showed up on my feed that New Record Day, Ron from New Record Day, I guess he was testing some, and that one overheated. So when they asked me to review these, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to deal with that. So I was gonna test it with, kind of like in a home theater situation, something kind of an odd situation. And I just plugged it in, and I noticed, like, man, these get pretty warm. And so I talked to my buddy who knows a lot about amplifiers because he makes a ton, and he's my go-to guy when it comes to this stuff. And I said, what's up with these high powered class D amps, you know? And he was just like, he basically told me, he gave me a lot of information about how heat works, of course. So you want to dissipate the heat away from the chip. And usually what that means is you need a lot of surface area, metal surface area, to dissipate heat away. You typically want a lot of air around it, just because the air, is going to heat up. But the smaller the space, the more that heat will just build up in that small space, versus the same thing in a large case. It'll heat up, but at least it has area for it to dissipate out. And so you want air inside, and then you want a lot of air running and cooling off the surface area that is dissipating the heat. And so a lot of these Class D amps are passive, so they don't have fans at all. They're just relying on the case itself to dissipate the heat. And when you're talking about, I think they're putting out 240 watts is their claim. Like, they're huge. The power bricks on these things are huge. They're like this. The amp is like this big and like this wide, and the power brick is like this big and like that wide. So a lot of power going through these things, and I don't know if that's what's causing the overheating. But again, this is for you. You know who you are. The guy who's telling me about all this stuff. He's telling me about. Well, first I got to rewind and say the reason I still said yes to these guys was because this thing has a standby mode, right? Because I noticed that the Fosse, what are those ZA3s that I had, they would always run hot even if everything was off, right? So they would stay on, no sound was coming through them, but they were still running hot. And I asked him what's up with that, and he talked to me about the idle wattage or quiescent wattage, meaning like how much it's drawing when nothing's going through it. It's still pulling some power, and enough power so that they're generating heat, And so just some things I'm learning about with these things. And it kind of got me thinking, why do people feel the need to have 240 watts running through their main speakers? Like, I get it if you're running a 2-channel setup. Maybe that's who their target market is with these mono blocks. But for a home theater, do you guys think that you're using anywhere close to 240 watts for your main speakers? You're crossing them over at, let's say, 80 watts. My opinion is that your subs are handling pretty much everything. Right? Your subs are doing all the work. Right? And your main speakers, I think if you had a way to measure them, I don't have a direct way to measure how much power I'm drawing from all my main speakers, but I think you'd be surprised. I think you'd laugh at how little wattage you're actually using on those speakers. I would probably guess if you had 60 watts, 50 watts, I think that you'd be fine. So in most home theater situations, right? I think 100 watts for sure would be fine, but 240, that's just a lot, So anyway, that's a question I have for you guys. How much power do you think you're using when you're running bass management, right? Not full range, right? Because I get it. If you're running full range, yeah, you might need those peaks when the bass hits, boom, right? If it's continuous and your capacitors are, you max out the power, you're drawing actual power from the amplifier, yeah, you're going to need a good amount of wattage, right? But I'm talking about bass managed for a home theater situation. So you guys let me know. Michael's saying, depending on the sensitivity of the speakers, 100 to 120 watts when loud. Okay. Marv says Outlaw amp is rated 120 watts per channel and is plenty enough to blow my ears. Yeah. I have a similar amp in the OSD audio amps, and I've accidentally blown up little bookshelf speakers with them. And it was just because I ran max power through these bookshelf speakers, and I was running some pink noise tests, something like that, and they just fried. So yeah, that's a lot of power. I'm curious to know what you guys think is the real max power that you're using. Yeah, you guys just put it in the comments, and I'm curious. So yeah, you know what I'm hoping from these companies, and this is what I relayed back to them, is for a 2-channel setup, I get it. You're trying to produce all these, lots of power because people are going to be impressed with it. And they'll probably buy it because like, oh yeah, I can get 240 watts from this little amp. That's awesome. Yeah, you're probably going to need some cooling if you want that thing to survive realistically. So I ended up buying the AC Infinity little fan, and I've been taking temperature readings throughout the day while running power through these to see what the difference is. And it's a significant difference. Like, I definitely want a fan on these little amps. And but then the problem is fans make noise, right? So you're talking about your Synad and having the best signal to noise ratio. Well, what happens when you have to hear fans? That's adding noise, So I'd rather have complete silence, I'm thinking about it right now here at my desk. I don't think I have any fans on. Whereas remember back in the day, you'd have a computer and the computer itself would have a bunch of fans. The video card would have a bunch of fans. Right now I'm using my MacBook Pro, and it has fans, but I don't even know if they're on. There's no spinning hard drive, so I'm kind of used to silence now. I like my electronics silent. So I'm not crazy about running fans. Let's just say that. Let's see. What else? Speaking of which, I am gonna turn on a fan because all these lights get a little bit hot in here. I got lots of LED lights, so I'm gonna turn this fan on. There we go. There we go. Well, didn't I just say I didn't like fans? I need fans for me. All right. I run too hot. All right. What other questions you guys have in here? You guys have any questions? I see C Big. What's going on, C Big? I haven't seen you in a while. How's it going? It's like a magnifying glass on ants. I think you're referring to the heat. What else here? Okay. What else am I testing? I just finished testing out the Zedu UHD 8000. And I didn't have any experience with that, but now I've tested it for about a month. Try to do as much as I can as far as like testing everything about it. And still there's things that I know I didn't get to, but I did my best. And I think I have an idea of who that thing is for, so look out for that video. But one thing that I noticed when I was testing that is that I tried to stream some stuff over my network. Right, so just having a hard drive connected to a computer and the computer running a Plex server. If I try to play 4K HDR movie, lossless, of course, it would stutter. It would stutter a lot. And if I tried to play it directly, just like opening up the file, opening it with VLC on a computer or something like that, it would also not be fast enough. So I think that is related to my Wi-Fi. I still have an old, what is this? A Google Home Wi-Fi, and it's still like the old one. It's like Wi-Fi 5. But I'm surprised that it's not fast enough to stream that. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that if I got a new mesh network, what is the newest one? Wi-Fi, whatever. What are they at now? I know there's Wi-Fi 6, 6E. I don't know how far up there they are with the Wi-Fi, but what would you say that Wi-Fi 7? Daryl saying 7. Okay, so let's say if there's Wi-Fi 7, if I got Wi-Fi 7, would I be able to stream lossless video 4K HDR? Would I be able to do that over the network? Is that fast enough? Or is it still one of those things like, nah, you should still have a wired network? Because, of course, wired, I mean, even anything, you probably could have done it 10 years ago over Ethernet. But I want to know if you can do it over wireless with like other things running, not like hypothetically. Talking about realistic, I got lots of I got lots of floors here. Other people using the Wi-Fi. So okay, what are you guys saying here? Daryl says don't know. He prefers wired. Yeah, I don't want to run wire. You know what I mean? Nothing uses 7, but other routers right now. Okay. Marv says just run Cat 6. No, I don't want to do that. That's old school. That's old school, guys. That's like running that's like, it's like zone 2 and 3 on AVRs. That's old school. We're on the new wireless stuff. You know what I mean? WIM amps. That's what I'm talking about. But seriously, you guys are saying that he can do it. So let's see, what are you saying, Uncle Fred? You can do it with Wi-Fi 7. Just depends on speed from your provider. Not even from my provider. I'm talking about locally, like from one to the other. Because what I found was interesting on mine, I could like if somebody had a fast enough connection, which a lot of people have a gig up, I could stream something locally, remotely from theirs, right? And if I tried to play that same video over my local network, it would have a hard time. And I think it's because the Wi-Fi is not just pulling, information in, it's also sending out. So it's taking up bandwidth because one has to send one out, the other one has to receive it. So that's like double the amount versus if somebody's sending it out from their computer over the internet to me, that's just me receiving the data. So that's no problem. But it's kind of weird. Like I can stream the same video off somebody else's computer, but I can't stream it on my local network. It just seems kind of weird. But I think it might just be because I'm using these old school, Wi-Fi 5. So you guys let me know if you're saying that if I get Wi-Fi 7, if I get something like that, are you saying for sure I'm going to be able to do it? Because if so, I'll do it. I'll upgrade to it. But I don't want to do all that only to find out that it's only a little bit better and it stutters a little bit less. I want zero stuttering. Get modern, Joe. Hardwire everything. Oh, Richard. That's modern? That's not modern. That's old school. And then even C Big says Cat 6 or 6A. And believe it or not, I used to own an IT business where this is the type of stuff we'd have to do. So I know, believe me, I know hardwire is the way to go. I get it. I'm not arguing with that. But all I'm saying is I want to be able to do it over Wi-Fi. Are we there yet? Can we do that? Can I do that locally? Is there enough bandwidth over Wi-Fi to be able to do that? That's the question. So what Daryl's asking, what is the Plex server installed on? It's an old Mac Mini, So I have a Mac Mini. I have an NVIDIA Shield. I'm thinking about getting a like a NAS drive that can run a Plex server, something like that. But what I find is even if I try to play this lossless video from one computer to the other, just over Samba, right? I have an issue doing that. So I think it's just there's not enough bandwidth in my Wi-Fi. Anyway, I'll keep you guys updated. I'll try it out. Maybe I'll try whatever you guys recommend. Um, Marv says you can just do Kaleidoscape. That's not the same thing. That has nothing to. I'm trying to stream like random stuff. Like I record something on my Sony camera, and then I want to watch it. Like maybe a family video that has nothing to do with Kaleidoscape. They're not going to be able to put my home videos on there. Michael says use a Wi-Fi spectrum analyzer. Look at your congestion. Okay. So Fred says Wi-Fi 7 can transfer 10 gigabits per second, and that I'm assuming that's hypothetical, theoretical. And I always find that theoretical is not even close to what real world usage is like. What happens when they're on each devices or each mesh router. I don't know if that's what it's called, but each device is on a different floor in a decent sized house, and there's actually things happening. So there's other devices accessing it. Like you'd be surprised. I think I have how many devices do I have connected to my Wi-Fi right now? Does it even say? But lights, like everything is connected to Wi-Fi now. Like if I'm like, look at this is my Wi-Fi. This is all the stuff that's connected to it. That's a lot of stuff. Right. Let's see. Both devices have to be Wi-Fi 7. Yes, I understand. So Josh says just upgraded my router to Asus RT8X88U Pro 220 on Amazon right now. So far, he loves it. Okay, so is that a mesh router? I'm trying to do mesh so that I can get good signal in all different parts of the house. CBix says if you're not hardwired, all of your items together become too much and you buffer. Okay. Okay. 1 second there. All right. So anyway, I'll keep you guys up to date. I'm just kind of curious. So, Rich, what's up, Rich? How you doing, Rich? He says, "What mesh system are you using?" Like I said, it's just the old Google Home, like the first generation. They've had I think maybe 2, 3, 4 generations above, and I know even then they weren't the greatest. But it worked well. It still works well. But I know that there are better ones, so I'm interested to see what else is out there. And it's only relevant, this is not, we don't typically talk about, networking, things like that. But when it comes to the stuff that we do, like streaming video on your local network remotely, now it's starting to get into computer territory, right? And that's what's interesting about all this stuff is that is kind of like my area of expertise, like technology. That's kind of where I go, which is kind of funny that I don't have the latest and greatest in Wi-Fi tech because this thing has always just worked. So I never found a need. My internet, is not super fast here because they don't have fiber here, and so I've never had the need for any upgrades except for when I started testing this Zidu, and I'm like, oh, I want to see how it streams over the network, and it was not good. The Zidu itself can act as a Samba server, so I wanted to see how that would work. But I think the issue is actually just my Wi-Fi network. Anyway, I'll keep you guys up to date. See what I find. Eero, you guys, that's what you're using. You guys like any particular ones? Eero. What are some other ones? All right. Here's a question I have for you. Let's switch over to some acoustic stuff. I've been thinking about bass, using multiple subs, and what it means, right? Because I think the general thinking is that you just want to optimize for your listening position. Right? If you have 1 seat or 4 seats, you want to make sure that the bass is good in all those seats, right? That makes sense, right? But after running multi-sub optimizer, what I found is sometimes what can happen, not in every situation, but what can happen is when you optimize for 1 seat or 4 seats or 8 seats, whatever it is, you have to do some EQ to each sub to optimize the sound in those areas. But what it doesn't take into account is how do those things measure in other parts of the room that you didn't measure, right? How does it sound in the corner and in this other part of the room? And I think general consensus would be, thinking would be, who cares? Who cares how it measures over there? You're not going to be sitting there. But I've been thinking about it and I'm like, can you really not hear that? Let's say if there's a huge peak in a different part of the room, but it's not at your listening position. Can you not sense that in some way? I think maybe if something's rattling over there, I think you will be able to detect that there's something happening over there. There's a lot of bass buildup in certain areas, even if the microphone is not showing that there is. And I've kind of experimented with that, and I've found that it seems as if I can detect like differences in pressure. It's kind of weird. I don't have any way to prove all this stuff, but what I did was I played test tones through a subwoofer, and I was stood in a place where I knew there was a null at that frequency, and it was only in this place. I stood in this place where I'm not supposed to be able to hear the bass, as the microphone shows. Like there's a huge null, and I'd play tone out of that subwoofer. And of course, in other parts of the room, I would be able to hear this tone. It's just, this particular location where I couldn't hear it, or not supposed to be able to hear it. And yeah, you can definitely hear once you get into the zone, the bass drops off, and it's almost like you don't really hear too much of the bass, but it doesn't mean that you don't sense it. It's like a weird thing. Like I feel like there's something going on. There's pressure over here somewhere. There's something happening. Definitely can tell that something is happening. Kind of weird. I'm wondering if that's something that we can detect. And the reason I ask is because the question in my mind is it better to optimize for different areas of the room, like a spatial average that accounts for every area in the room, and sacrifice the perfection in these seats for it to not have huge peaks in other areas of the room? So that's a question I have. I don't have the answer. And I would have to talk to maybe Todd Welty. Maybe he has the answers. But I don't have the answers yet, but I do want to experiment with that to see if making the bass smoother everywhere in the room leads to a better perceptual experience at your listening position, even if your microphone says otherwise. Even if your microphone says, nah, this is not as smooth as optimizing for these seats. I'm wondering if just somehow it feels better. Psychoacoustics is a weird thing in that it's about how we perceive things as humans. Like there's the acoustics part, purely science, and we can measure all that. But it's also like humans are weird, right? Like how do we perceive that? Can we detect that somehow? Is there a pressure imbalance that we didn't take into account that a single mic just doesn't have access to? I don't know. I don't know the answers to that. But I do have a super chat. Ole! I hope I'm saying that right. Thank you for the super chat. Yes, any downsides with mixing different subs? I have three PB2000s, so SVS PB2000s, and one Monolith THX10. Okay, so let me see here. Are there any downsides? Downsides, yes. Right? Downsides is it's more complicated. If you just had all PB2000s, the great thing about that is that they kind of have the same limits, right? If you set them all to the same exact gain, send them all the same exact EQ. You know that if you start turning it up, they're going to start reaching their distortion limits at the same time. The port tuning, as long as you have the same, ports plugged, they will have the same native frequency response, right? And the issues that you'll have will be the same for all of them, right? So if one starts chuffing when you apply a certain amount of EQ below the tuning frequency, you can kind of understand that this is going to be the same for the rest of them. Now, when you start mixing stuff, luckily all of these are ported, so THX10 is ported. Now you start running into other issues, which is the tuning frequency of the THX10 might be different than the PB2000s. And the reason why that may be an issue is because typically what happens at the tuning frequency or the port is there's a phase inversion, right? That's no problem if they're all the same subs, right? That phase shift is gonna happen at the same frequency for all of them. But when you start mixing subs, now you have to consider like all these subs are aligned. Let's say you have them perfectly phase aligned, right? But then the THX10, let's say the port tuning is higher. There might be a point where now it's starting to fight with the other subwoofers at that particular frequency, right? So what do? Right? Now you can resolve that if you use something like multi-sub optimizer, because then you can say, all right, THX10 at this particular frequency, don't contribute anymore, right? Just kind of like sharp cut off and say where your port usually starts helping out, we don't want that. Don't do anything, like stop playing sound as much as possible and let the PB2000s take over from there. And that way you are getting the benefit of the THX10 above the tuning frequency and you're getting the bass extension from the PB2000s. But now you're getting into a territory where you're using something like multi-sub optimizer. I'm not sure that Dirac live bass control would be able to, I think it should be able to do that, but I don't know how effective it will be because it has to do, phase rotations. You'd have to do a phase rotation to make it all sum properly at all of them. So it's tricky. So the downside is that you need more knowledge to make that work. That's basically it. So more subs that are the same, it just makes your life easier. That's basically it. But if you're already familiar with multi-sub optimizer, yeah, have fun. In my system, I have like 4 different subs. Previously, I had one that was sealed, which you're not supposed to do, but I was able to get away with it because I'm using multi-sub optimizer. But for most people, I really don't recommend it. If you can get all the same sub, it's better. It's easier. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for the super chat. What else you guys saying? You guys still on this Wi-Fi 6? Anthony, what's going on, Anthony Perez? You got a Nighthawk running 46 connected devices, including thermostats and stuff. Man, it's crazy. Like some of the stuff here that's connected to Wi-Fi, it's makes you wonder, like, man, what is happening? Why does all this stuff need to be connected to Wi-Fi? Got a bunch of cameras. What else is on here? Let me think about the weirdest one. What's the weirdest thing that needs to connect? The ELAC Protect, my surge protector. That's connected to my network. I guess that's handy because I can remotely turn things on and off. Lights, bunch of lights, lots of lights. Lots of mobile devices, tablets and iPads, phones, lights. What else here? Smart plugs, all kinds of bulbs and smart plugs. Garage. Okay. Yeah, one thing I do like about this thing, and let me know if you guys with the other wireless networks, if yours does this, but it'll notify me when a new device logs into my network. So when my mom or my sister, they come to visit, I always know before they even get here because like their devices start connecting to my network. and it notifies me like, oh, their MacBook connected. Oh, okay, cool. I'm sure they're here somewhere. They're close by. So let me know if yours does that, because I like that feature. Let's see here. What else are you guys saying in here? Just go down the line. Marv says, I use my kids' Nugget foam play. Oh, Marv. I do the same thing. You know, I got 2 sets of Nugget couches. Those things are expensive, actually. Got 2 sets in the living room, man. I got the acoustics on deck. Who needs these professional calibrators when you have kids and you have Nugget foam play couches? And you can move them around, you know, like you put the triangles, like, all right, let me see if I place these in different locations. Those are thick, by the way. You guys don't know what we're talking about. Nugget. Let me see if I can pull a Nugget kids couch. Let's see. All right. Nugget comfort. Here. This is what we're talking about. I guess they're not too expensive. Here. That's what we're talking about right here. Boom. What color? I got a yellow. I got a gray one. They're $250, but see, it's a lot of foam, right? You can organize it how you want. So if you want acoustic treatment, you just buy these instead. That's what you want. All right, I'm good. I'm joking, of course. Ole, he says, love the answer. Time to dive deep. Yes. You can always give me a call, and I can do it remotely. Let's see here. Okay, so Joel says, it alerts when my mother-in-law arrives. Pretend I'm not home. Let me know. Let me know which device that you have, because I'm curious. I like that feature. Erod says, why am I getting audio dropouts listening to your show, Apple TV with 2.5 gig Ethernet? I don't know. Maybe it's my Wi-Fi, right? We've been talking about my Wi-Fi, and maybe it's me. You guys let me know. Is that you know, you guys having dropouts? Or maybe it's Erod. Maybe you need a new Wi-Fi network. I don't know. Tim says it's good here. Okay. All right. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Again, quick reminder and quick little shill out here for super chats, because it definitely helps us out, you know. A few bucks here and there is definitely appreciated, and it makes it easier for me to figure out who wants their question answered right away. Okay. Yeah, I don't really have any other topics, you know. I guess I got this. You guys see this? Anybody else talking about this? This is like one of those coffee table books, and this is pretty cool. You know, they sent it to me. I guess this is the guy, Richard Charsham. You know, a little thing here, and he wrote, "To Joe, do what you love." Yes, and I can say for sure that's my. I live by that. I do what I love, and I don't do very much of what I don't like to do. I think that's the secret, and hopefully, you know, I recommend other people do that. The part of that, though, is do what you love, but make sure that it's useful to other people. You can't just do only what you love. If it's not useful to anybody, then nobody wants to pay you. So you got to do what you love. Hopefully it's useful to other people. And if you do what you love, you're good at it, it's useful to others, the money will kind of take care of itself. So yeah. Let's see here. Richard asked, do you get the full amount when someone sends you a super chat? No. YouTube takes their cut, but I guess that's what you pay for the convenience of them being the middleman. You know, I guess if you want to like mail a check, I'm kidding. Don't do that. Some starred comments here. Let me see here. Let's see here. Let me undo that one. Wendell, what's going on, Wendell? He says he has 4 subs, all in corners except for one. Are bass traps a necessity? I'm only speaking from experience, which is limited. And the experience that I've had is that somebody bought like bass traps for their room, and it actually made the bass worse because it was absorbing bass that they could have used. Extra bass typically is not an issue if you can EQ the extra bass, right? I think bass traps can be very useful in a specific use case, and that's if you are getting cancellation caused by a reflection. So a lot of times you'll be sitting in a null because the sub will be outputting sound at certain frequencies, and then a reflection will cancel those frequencies. So what you'll get is, no matter how much you turn it up, the cancellation waves are canceling out at the same level. So it's not really helping that you're turning it up, right? In which case, if it's possible, if it's at a certain frequency that you can capture, then it's possible that you're absorbing the bass that cancels out the sound that you want. Am I saying that right? You're absorbing the bass that is typically canceling out the sound that you want to be able to hear at your listening position, right? So that's that. Oh man, hopefully that helps. And also, yeah, just be careful. Take a lot of measurements and make sure that the frequency that you're trying to fix is something that you need to fix. Don't just go and say, "Oh, well, people said bass traps. I need to get some." I did actually another setup, a 2-channel setup. I see you, Fred. I'm gonna get to you. I see. I did a 2-channel setup that's like, it was like $100,000 setup in this guy's office, right? And he had these bass traps, and we were just measuring at his listening position because the bass didn't sound right, right? And so he had the bass traps, and we were moving around the bass traps and looking at the real-time analyzer to see what was happening when we were moving the stuff, and it wasn't really doing much. And the end result was moving his listening position about 1.5 feet forward, took him out of the null, and it was completely like much better. So in the end, he didn't even need those bass traps. So anyway, I see. Fred, thank you. $100 super chat. Oh my goodness, thank you. He says Daily HiFi rocks. Thanks, Uncle Fred. You're the best. You are the best. I appreciate it. And yeah, you know that. Josh says baller. That's right. My man Fred. Damn, Fred. That's right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, Fred's he's very popular in the after show. We have a good time. And the best thing about the after show is all the people who were in that after show, if we met up in person, I don't think it would be awkward at all. It's like, just like we know each other already, So I'm excited for the day we all meet up, hang out, have some dinner and whatever. It all comes around. So thank you, Uncle Fred. I call him Uncle Fred. Yep. Thank you for that. Angela said, whatever that face is. All right. Thanks again. You're the best. What else we got here? What else we got? Did I answer this one? Marv says, thinking of a pair of RSL 10 S2s to pair to a Klipsch RP 1400 SW. I don't know about the Klipsch 1400 SW. I do have the RSL 10 S2s, and they're good little subs, man. I mean, they're inexpensive, relatively inexpensive. Of course, if you talk to somebody who's never seen this stuff, be like, that's inexpensive, damn. But yeah, compared to other subs, they're very fairly priced, and the frequency response and the output is also very good considering the size and the price. So I can vouch for the 10S2s. I like them a lot. They don't dig as deep as the 12S because the 12S is so much bigger. So if you need like sub 20 hertz bass, yeah, you're gonna need more than the 10S2s. I don't know about this RP 1400 SW. So, yeah, let me look it up. Klipsch H RP 1400 SW. And I think the same thing applies to what I was saying earlier. It's better to not mix and match if you don't have to. So this is the one that he's showing here. Klipsch RP 1400 SW 14-inch high excursion subwoofer. This is their newer one, like the one that's like oddly, yeah. Look at from the front and the back. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's all right. And then from the side, you're like, dang. Yeah, it's all. Look at it. You can't even tell from this picture. They trick you. And then dust comes out of the ports. All right. Yeah, I've heard that these have really like serious bass extension. They're showing here, what is this sweet spot? They're showing 20 hertz. So yeah, I kind of would expect, dang, that's a nice looking woofer. I would expect a decent amount of power just because what I've found is the size of the enclosure makes a huge difference in output. Right? So they have a pretty large enclosure, so I kind of expect that type of output. Yeah. If you can, I would recommend maybe just getting the same one if you already have the Klipsch. Let's see here. I'm trying to keep track of all the comments here that are coming in, but also there's some super chats. I'll try to knock these out. Okay, I already did that one. Okay, so here's another one from Van Gool. He says, if a speaker says 50 to 120 watts, can you really run them at 120 max? I think it depends on whether the speaker itself says that it's RMS or peak power. Because a lot of times, peak power is typically like double the RMS power. It just means that for a split second, if the music gets super loud, get like some kind of crazy bass drop, for a split second, it can handle that. But continuous means like if you were to play something that was continuously like some of those old bass tracks, if you were to play it at the peak amount, let's say if the speaker says it can handle 120 and you throw 128 watts at it for 20 seconds, probably not good for it, right? It might start making some sounds that you don't like. So yeah, just gotta be careful. What you want to look for is always RMS. You guys already know that. Okay. Daryl asks, have you discussed your room treatment there? Well, you guys already know it's all about the nugget comfort for the living room. Here I have like cheap, inexpensive, I should say, foam panels that you're not supposed to use that people would laugh at because typically those foam panels are only like max like 2 inches, but I have them stacked on top of each other. So it's actually 4 inches of foam and it's the entire wall. And it's because here, what I want is I just don't want the reflection from this back wall hitting the microphone that I'm talking into here, right? This stuff behind here, that's all for, it's just for looks. I'm sure it does something, but that's not the reason I bought them. Right? So, I think it depends on what you're looking for. Here, it's mostly about me recording into this microphone. So before, when I first moved in here, it was so echoey in here. It was crazy. So they're definitely doing what they're supposed to do. Let's see here. Wendell says, I have 4 subs, all in corners except for one are bass traps necessity. I think that goes back to my other answer. Get bass traps if you definitely know it'll solve a problem for you, right? And as far as how to figure that out, you need measurements to figure out where are there issues. And then you have to talk to some of these guys, someone who you trust, and say, if I get this bass trap and if I place it here, will that resolve the issue? And if you decide to buy one, I would say buy from a company who would be willing to take that thing back. They're huge. So that's the issue. A lot of times company will say, yeah, we'll take it back, but you may not want to ship that thing back. It might be so big. You're like, didn't do much. Oh, well, put it under the stairs. Too bad. So yeah, be smart about it. Don't waste money. All right. Yakena1, how you doing? He says, who is the target marketplace for the new Arendelle speaker line? So he's talking about the 1523s, I believe. 1528. Yeah, I think 1528. Who's the target market? I think who they think the target market is. I think they believe the target market, especially for the towers, I think they believe that it's a 2-channel person or someone who has a pretty big budget for their home theater. I think that's who they believe it is for. But I think that's tricky because they're pretty expensive, right? Maybe somebody who has a lot of money, maybe it's not an issue for them. But there are other speakers that are in that price range. So it's not like they exist in a vacuum. They have to compete with others. You know, somebody might start looking like, I wonder what this per listen stuff is about. You know, there are other options in that category. I think they're probably good. Right? I think that the measurements that I've seen so far, which is limited, they look like they do what they're supposed to do. But the other question is, why would somebody not buy the 1723s? They're a lot less expensive. They measure well. They have a ton of output. Those are THX certified, so we know that they can play loud. In my experience and from what I see in the measurements, they're very EQable. So why would I feel the need to upgrade? Personally, I don't think I would. I'm using the 1723s right now because they sent them to me. I would use the 1528s if they sent them to me, because why not? But the question I really have to ask is, would I make that purchase, right? Because that's really what matters. If you're getting sent stuff, it's nothing, right? It's just a matter of like, do I want to have to deal with that stuff, you know? But that's not the decision that most people would have to make. They have to spend the money to upgrade, and that's a tough call. I'm very biased because I have an EQ app in Magic Beans, and so I would say just EQ the EQ your 1723s or whatever you have, and just be done with it and be happy. But if you like the look of the new ones, there are other reasons why I think people would like the new Arendelle. You know, maybe they just have a ton of money. They just want the latest and greatest. They want time, you know, that maybe they like the way it looks. I don't know. So I think there's something for everyone, and I hope that Arendelle finds that person, that whoever it is, who these speakers are correct for, and that person is extremely happy with that purchase. You know, there's a product that's right for every person, but that's not for me. You know, and I can only speak for myself. So anyway, well, let's see here. Joel asked, discussion topic: do movies really hit 105 dB peaks above 200 hertz while listening at reference? Using RT or RAW, I never saw it hit 105. Matt Pose on a recent video says most are not mixed something. I mean, I can listen to some Dolby Atmos demos, and it definitely hits those peaks. So whether that's comfortable for me, you know, a lot of people are trying to aim for the 85 dB reference at their listening position. But I think in a home theater, realistically, something more like 79 dB is more realistic. 6 dB down from the recommended, reference level. And it also, if Jeremy's here, he knows we always say that doesn't even matter nowadays because you turn on Netflix, it has a totally different volume than, if you're streaming something on YouTube or locally, like the volumes are all over the place. So what is reference? I don't know. I don't think it matters. I think all you need to know for home theater, realistically, for most people, is can you play it loud enough so that you're happy with how loud it plays, and does it play clean? Whatever that number is, whether it's 105 or 125 or 85, who cares? You can play the sound as loud as you want, and you're happy with it. I mean, I understand that it matters when you're comparing speakers, right? You want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, because if it's comfortable for me, that may be uncomfortable for you, so it's good to have that hard number, but in a practical sense, like who cares, right? It doesn't really matter in a day-to-day use. Like what do you listen at? I don't know. Yeah. I think my reference is if I listen to music, if I had that person singing in my room, right? Singing that same exact song, that artist, can I play the vocal part loud enough so that sounds like realistic? Maybe a little bit extra, maybe a little higher, right? Just a little bit. But that's about how loud I would want things to be. Like my reference level is the dialogue intelligible so I can hear what they're saying in the movie. And then if there's an explosion and that explosion's super loud, well, that's how they mixed it. But I'm not going to change the volume unless I have to, right? Unless I don't want to disturb people or whatever. But for the most part, I listen so that the vocals are clear, and then whatever happens, explosions, that's what it is. And some movies, they make it so it's real quiet so they can scare you when something happens. Well, what's the reference, right? I don't know. Mike Ortiz just joined. Anything in the works? Anything in the works? There's lots of things in the works. There's lots of updates to my Magic Beans app. We added support in the next version, upcoming version, for Sony receivers. Whoever has one of those, you'll be able to use it with certain Sony products. What else? We updated our method for Dirac that uses a 2-pass method so that it undoes what Dirac does automatically, because we kind of don't want it to do what it does. So we have a new way of kind of bypassing that. What else? Yeah, a new way to do the post EQ sub alignment. It's kind of some of the stuff that we're working on. So constantly just trying to improve the Magic Beans experience for the people who already bought it. That's it. Just trying to improve the experience, make the app better. Let's see here. True Pro Home Cinema Sound is SVS PB17 Ultra worth it for 8 hertz at 3.7K. I think not. My JBL Pro Cinema can reach 8 hertz on REW, but it's inaudible to the ear. Okay. I think I get what you're saying. Basically, you're saying, is a PB17 Ultra worth it? And my question is, what are you coming from? If you have nothing and you're gonna go and buy this thing, sure, I'm sure it's awesome. I don't know. I don't know because I haven't reviewed it. Typically, SVS has been known for good value, right? But not everybody's looking for the best possible bang for your buck, right? That's an assumption that I make because that's what I'm looking for. I'm always looking for the best bang for your buck. And that's what when I review something, that's kind of like my gauge. Like, is it a good bang for your buck? Some people just want the best of the best and they have the money to do it. Go for it, But Marv here is saying that the SB16 is $1,600 right now. So it might be a good time to swoop up on their SB16 and PB16. Those didn't suddenly become worse because a new one came out, right? But anyway, let me see what are you guys saying in the live chat here. Mm, 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 mm. Okay, let's see here. Lasso Mohicans THX TAP theatrical mix on Laserdisc is a bass buster. Who needs John Wick when there's muskets? Michael Mann Dolby mix won best sound in 1992. Um, Croissant says, get the new version amps. The older ones have issues with the bridge rectifier. The real old ones are the new ones, not the middle or previous generations. Which one are you referring to here? What are we talking about? It says the wattage is more of a fire rating. Roughly, it means it can handle that wattage for X seconds without catching fire. Okay. ETC or RT60 decay times to understand where and if you need bass traps. Okay, so Paul's just in here dropping knowledge for you guys. What else? Mid bass maestro says 6700H and Magic Beans compatible, and if so, is it hard for me to upload information? Yeah, definitely. I have a 6700H, and that's what I was testing on for a lot of time prior to release, and it's compatible, easy to upload if you have the multi QX app, the $200 app. Somebody figured out a way to do it using the $20 Odyssey editor app, but I've not tested it, so I can't vouch for that. Right? I know for a fact that we made it compatible with multi QX, and I mean that's one of the best ways to do it, in my opinion. So yeah, definitely. What else? Fred says, I thought about getting SB16s, and then they said SB17 has some magic that can make it not trip normal breakers. And I've heard you say that multiple times, Fred, but my question is, are you tripping breakers? Like, it makes me think that that's something that you have an issue with. Like, your subs, I know you think you're running SB3000s. Are you tripping breakers with all of your subs? I think you have, what, 4 of them? You know, because if that's not an issue, it's not an issue. You know, but I guess it's cool that it doesn't trip breakers. I don't know how that works. Um. Oh, so Paul was talking about the clip subs. Get the old ones or the new ones. Okay. Okay. Big Jack says bullcrap. Are you referring to the tripping breakers? Um. So Fred says his SB3000s don't, but I've seen that SB16s do. How does that work, guys? I'm limited in my knowledge when it comes to the electronics part, but I would guess like remember remember old car stereos, people would put those big capacitors so your lights wouldn't dim. You know, is that what's happening? They have like some bigger capacitors so that when the bass hits, it doesn't like draw the power from, you know, from your actual power. It's just building up from the stored capacitors. Is that what's happening or something else happening? Again, my understanding is limited, so I don't know. What else? What else? The True Pro Home Cinema Sound says, why don't they sell the Magic Breaker as standalone for use for all circuit breakers? But I don't trip any of mine with the Behringer NX3000 on my JBL. Okay. And Paul says, why get a sub that limits itself? That is the only way to stop breakers from tripping, which means get a low-powered sub, since it just means leaving power on the table in the end. Is that how that thing works? It just limits the power? I don't know. And mid-bass Maestro said 6500H. I'm sorry. Yeah, as long as your device can run multi-Q X, then you're fine, right? So the way to know easily is if you go to the App Store and you look up the Odyssey Editor app, it'll have a list of all the things that are compatible. if it's compatible with Odyssey Editor app, then it also means it's compatible with the Multi-Q X app. Paul says it is more likely voltage drop measure than it lowers or limits the power. So why have it? Fred says they mentioned there's some built-in line conditioners also. Okay. Daryl says he took this is Paul McGowan, I believe, his advice and ran a dedicated circuit for cleanliness and dodging other devices on the circuit. Okay. Paul says same way a UPS power supply instantly kicks on, but on a subwoofer essentially. Okay. And Marv says I have Multi-Q X on his on the 6500H, so we know that it works. All right. We're over an hour. I want to hang out with the guys in the after show. If you want to become one of the after show Daily HiFi Crew members, you can go to crew.dailyhifi.com. You can buy merch at shop.dailyhifi.com. And you can listen to the audio only version of the podcast at Anchor FM/Daily HiFi. And yeah, hopefully that was entertaining enough for you guys. Let me see if I made sure to answer all the questions here in the start comments. Oh, there's one more here. I'll just get this one here. Wagner says, is there a time alignment issue with subwoofers that are deeper into the room than speakers? Okay. And then True Home Cinema Sound says the energy drinks are no good. And you're probably right. You know what I mean? You're probably right. But there's lots of things that are not good for you. So you pick and choose, right? I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. So what can you do? This air is probably bad for me out here too. But anyway, back to Wagner's question. Is there a time alignment issue with subwoofers that are deeper into the room than speakers? So what? Okay, time alignment is based on how far the speaker is, but also how much delay is there, how much latency is there in the subwoofer itself caused by the DSP. Right? So let's say the DSP causes, let's say, 8 milliseconds of delay, right? Maybe being at a certain distance also causes a certain amount of delay. So in the end, the answer is there's no issue if you're able to delay your main speakers so that when the bass hits on your subwoofer, it also is at the same time as your main speakers, right? So you need to compensate for whatever delay that the subwoofers have inherently. But yeah, it shouldn't be an issue. I mean, if you have a subwoofer that's right next to you, like some people are running, near field subs, then that's right next to you. So all that means is you need to compensate less on your main speakers, right? Because you're not trying to accommodate for the distance related delay. So it's not a big deal, If you can delay your main speakers, you're good to go. What else? All right. So they can send your sugar levels way too high. Sugar levels should be within 5. If near close 30 would be fatal for. Okay, so be careful. Okay, I hear you. I'll chill on the drinks then. Thank you for the advice. And then Fred, okay. Well, that's it, guys. I think I answered as many questions as I could without my voice, going out. So I'll see you guys in the after show. Thank you guys for tuning in and hanging out and asking questions and giving me advice for my Wi-Fi. And yeah, good times. I'll see you guys next week. And if you're part of the crew, see you in the after show. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.